days, particularly with our culture sitting, where they just don't get enough time to strengthen. If you have tight hip flexors, try this. The common advice seems to be to stretch them, and that makes sense. They feel tight, right? They feel like they need to be stretched. However, tightness is often a sign of weakness. It's the brain's protective strategy against a tissue or a joint or an area that is either too weak to handle the demands of your day or your life, or doesn't have enough control. It's the brain's handbrakes to keep you safe. It's a protective mechanism. So strengthening that tissue and strengthening that area is often the best shot at relieving that sensation of tightness, convincing the brain that you got this, that that tissue's got this, and it can handle the demands of life. So for this, we're going to strengthen the hip flexors in two ranges, their shortest and their longest. Okay? Let's begin with the shortest. For this, I'll lay straight on my back. This can also be done from standing, but I like this as the beginning point because I'm laying on the ground. I have plenty of feedback from the ground, and so there's a little chance for me to move around or have other body parts coming out of alignment or position without me feeling it and knowing it. So I'm going to begin with this left hip. And I'll begin with my legs straight, okay? Now I want to exhale everything, get everything out, and get these ribs down, okay? We're not going to be doing this with flared ribs or low back too arched off the ground. Ribs down. Next, I'm going to take my knee and I'm going to pull it up towards my chest, okay? This is as far as I can get actively, and I'm going only so far as I can go without my low back starting to dump into the ground or this other knee coming up, okay? If I find that my low back is crushing into the ground, this is why the ground is such great feedback. If I find that I can't get that any higher without that other knee lifting up off the ground, chances are that I've run out of honest, pure hip flexion, and I'm starting to borrow from the pelvis and the spine to produce this range of motion. So, again, here is where I can get actively. I'm going to then grab my knee, and we're going to go for some passive range holds. And this task is just like it sounds. I'm asking you to hold a range that you can really only achieve passively. This is as high as I can get my knee by myself, but if I assist with my hands, I can get a little deeper. From here, I'm going to take a big breath in. You can't see my other foot, but I'm going to pretend like I have a rubber band between my 2 feet, and that my feet are like an archer. They're stretching that rubber band. So this one drives long, this one pulls high, trying to get knee to chest and to pop a tennis ball that I have here in my hip crease. So here I've achieved my passive range. Breath in, create tension, and release, and hold for 3, 2, 1. We're going to go for 5 repetitions. Big breath in, squeeze, create tension. If I have a tennis ball right here, I don't want to let it go, and hold 3, 2, 1. And if you have a tennis ball, that's a great object to place right here and give yourself some external feedback and an external target. Again, breath in, create tension, and slowly let go with the fingers. I'm passing the buck from my hands to this tissue, the stuff that would help me leave that knee right there. No lag. The name of the game is to not have any drop in that knee when I let go of the hands. That's why I'm going to let go slowly. If I let go quickly, that knee can drop. If I let go slowly, I'm going to give this tissue here an opportunity to ramp on up and squeeze and hold this position. I'd love to see your toes pulled up towards your shin here as well. Better transfer for things like squats. Okay, so that's technique number 1. Technique number 2, we're going to create, and these can be done back to back, depending on your tolerance for the burn. Second technique, second tool, I'm going to have you again pull your knee up towards your chest with a good exhale, as high as you can actively, and then we're going to block it with the arm. Okay, so I'm going to go straight arm here. Now we can go either dead end range or we can come 10 degrees shy of that. The effect will be just the same. Big breath in, and I'm going to stiff arm this knee, and I'm going to pull the knee into the hand, hand into the knee. What I'm looking to do is create a crazy amount of tension through this tissue here, specifically focus on my hip flexors, right where the thigh and the stomach meet, all that deep tissue there. So big breath in, I'm going to turn the volume up on this fight. These two, my knee and my hand, are arm wrestling, and that fight increases, all the way up to 100%, pulling knee into hand. Hand doesn't let that knee move, but that knee is fighting. I'm going to exhale it out. I'm going to hit 100%, and I'm going to hold for 10 seconds. And then I'm going to ramp on down. Fantastic. Repeat that 1 or 2 more times. Same thing for the other leg. The third tool that we're going to use here, I can find my band. Third tool that we're going to use here called psoas marches. Psoas is another name for the hip flexor. The hip flexor is called the psoas muscle. It is one of the muscles that flexes the hip, or pulls the knee towards the chest. So for here, I have a band looped. You heard me talk about archer earlier. This is a technique that's going to help you feel that. Okay, and also get some good reps in for that hip flexor. A great follow-up to get a good pump into that tissue, just like you would any other muscle that you were training. Hip flexors are a muscle too, they need some love. So I have this band around my feet, breath in, same setup, hands can be into the ground or elbows into the ground, whatever helps me steady out the upper body. Feet start together, and I'm going to keep one foot locked long, energy down through the heel, down and out. Other foot is going to pull tall. Pull, 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 pull through that knee. Excellent. Return. And we can march. We can alternate. Pull, 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 and down. Excellent. I'd love to see 10 to 15 reps on each side for 3 sets. If you do 3 sets of 10 to 15, that last set is real hard, but you make it, fantastic. You can take that weight up, spend some time there for a week, and then take that weight up. Maybe you use the same band but shorten how you've tied it. Maybe you use a heavier rubber band and increase that challenge. I can take that last repetition if I want and add that load and create a little passive hold. Do exactly what I did earlier. Fantastic. So this is strengthening the hip flexor in that short range of motion. The second range that we're going to go for is the hip flexor in its longest range of motion. For this, I'm going to have you in a position called half kneeling. Feel free to use broomsticks or sticks or the back of a chair if you like to make this not just about balance but about efforting into that hip flexor. If you need to, feel free to add extra padding under that knee. Again, we don't need this to be about fighting discomfort in the knee. We want the brain's focus to be on this tissue right here. Okay? So one common mistake that I see when attempting to stretch the hip flexors is that people push themselves forward where they allow that low back to arch. Okay? The body's really smart and loves to escape effort. And this is one of the ways that the body is going to try to avoid producing a stretch in that hip flexor. The hip flexor, the psoas, is a muscle that attaches here at the thigh bone, crosses like the arc of a bow across the pelvis, and then attaches here at the low back, the lumbar spine. So if we have that lumbar spine arching as we push forward, it's not actually lengthening. It's not actually stretching. What we're going to need to do to stretch this is keep the knee fixed in place and scoop the tailbone under, okay? So for here, I'm attempting to take my tailbone and like a dog that is ashamed, tuck it under. Tuck it under, tuck it under, tuck it under. Scoop that tailbone under. And you can play with this. If you get your hands on your pelvis, pretend that they're a bowl, so your pelvis is a bowl of water. We can either tip that bowl of water forward, or we can tip that bowl of water backwards, okay? Shoulder, knee, pelvis stay stacked. Just that pelvis tips. Now what I should get is a good stretch through even maybe some of this quad tissue up into the hip flexor. Now, if I feel that and I still want, I've maxed out on that posterior tip, that tucking under the pelvis, I still want to increase that stretch here, only then, fighting for that posterior tip, fighting to keep that pelvis tall, only then can I push the hips forward and have you push the toes and the heel to the back of the room, squeezing some of this hamstring stuff, squeezing some of that back of leg stuff to try to stretch out this hip flexor. Good. So now that we've got the setup out of the way, okay, we're going to stay here in the stretch for a little while, and then we're going to add some work. The same way that we had the hand and the knee fighting into each other to create an isometric contraction for that hip flexor while we were on the ground, isometric being tension with nothing moving, that's what we'll do here. We have all this good stretch going down the front of the hip flexor. We're going to load it. The way we're going to load it is by taking a big breath in. We're going to create a scissor action between these two legs. So front leg is going to grip that yoga mat and pull the heel towards me, towards this leg. This knee is going to grip the yoga mat and pull the yoga mat towards the front heel. It's like I'm trying to crinkle the yoga mat between these two legs, but nothing moves. A good isometric contraction is one that you can't really see happening if you're looking from a distance. So big breath in, and let's build. Let's go from 0 to 100%. Here I have a rug under me, so I'm actually creating a crinkle. Big breath in, turning that volume up slowly. Taking this tissue and contracting it, putting more and more work through it without anything else coming out of posture or position. 0 to 100%. Hold for 10 seconds. Ramp on down. Wash, rinse, repeat. I want you to take 4 to 5 good breaths. Take some time. And then repeat that effort. You're going to ramp on up, trying to scissor pinch these 2 points together. Ramp on up to 100%. Hold for 10 seconds, then ramp on down. You're going to do that for 2 to 3 repetitions within this set, and then call it a day. That, my friends, is how we're going to start to strengthen some of the tissue here in the psoas, in both the short and the long ranges. If you're feeling super adventurous, and I don't mean adventurous as in reckless, I mean giving this a go. You want to make sure that you can have some of the prerequisites for this range of motion. I would not suggest this as a place to start, but it's an excellent place to progress. What we're going to do here is take a wide stance. And I'm going to try to scoop my tailbone under. I'll be on the toes of the back foot, heel off the ground. Front foot planted solidly, okay? The name of the game is to try to keep this tailbone scooped, tall in the pelvis as I lunge forward, okay? What I'm going to get here is a big stretch through this tissue, through this hip flexor stuff, while also strengthening this front leg, okay? So here, same scissor action, okay? But this leg is winning. So I am pulling, 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 okay? Got a little bit of tension in these toes down into the ground. And I'm going to keep this tailbone tucked. As far down as I can get in these pants. And then I'm going to drive this foot into the ground, drive back on up. Same deal. Okay? So tuck of the tailbone, front leg pulls. This repetition will have you keep that butt cheek squeeze, tuck that tailbone, drive the back leg behind you, pull through the front leg, try to keep that pelvis and that torso as tall as you can. Pulling, 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 and then drive on up. So this is an aggressive range. Feel free to come down a little shy of that. Feel free to let this back knee bend. That's your gas pedal. Bending that back knee can decrease how intense the stretch is. I'd love to keep the stretch through this tissue around a 7 out of 10, maybe an 8 out of 10. It doesn't need to be a 9 or a 10. Okay, I want something that you can do 8 repetitions on. Fantastic. Okay, alternately, we can take this front foot and we can raise it up to regress movement. Okay, I can take that front foot, I can raise it. That's going to help make it a little easier. Okay, it's still going to be a demand on this hip flexor in the front here. Good short range work, right? We're making it a little easier on that back leg. Okay, so again, pulling through this front heel, pulling through this front hip flexor, tucking that tailbone under, getting a big stretch, and driving on up. Being able to achieve 3 sets of 8, even if your carpet is shifting around, is a great place to start. Give it a shot. Let me know what you think. Your hips will thank you later.